When we look at gas cooling, there's a couple of important things we have to consider. One, it's our flow rate and how much pressure we have in the hose. For this gas cooling here, with this nozzle, 30 gallons per minute at 100 psi will give us the right droplet. If our droplet's too small, it won't penetrate far enough before it vaporizes. If our droplet's too big, it'll travel through the smoke without vaporizing and absorbing energy. So first we have a look at short pulse. The other important thing is I want you to imagine we have a smoke layer, a neutral plane, just at kneeling head height. To be effective, I want all of my water to go into that smoke. So by raising the nozzle up, having the bail in line with my eyes, fully open, fully shut on this design nozzle gives us a very nice droplet. And we can see that it falls to the ground in about 3 to 4 seconds. We can also see that the droplets penetrate right up, even if it was a very high ceiling. We must be careful if we start to drop the nozzle down much lower, and I want you still to imagine we have a neutral plane just on my helmet. We can see that perhaps a large percentage of those droplets ended up on the floor instead of our smoke. We rectify that by straightening our arm up, getting the nozzle higher, and we can go to 100% efficiency. With our longer pulse, we can lower our angle because we want our droplet to travel further, perhaps to where the ceiling meets the wall, down a hallway, perhaps in a larger structure, open plan. So I'll narrow my cone just a little bit and we'll throw our droplet further. Once again, this is still on 30 gallons per minute. And we can see how effectively we can throw our droplets into a larger volume. Once we do have a larger volume, it can be beneficial to increase our flow rate. By going to 60 gallons per minute on this nozzle, still at 100 psi, I get a bigger droplet which I can throw further. Effectively, what we saw was double the amount of water coming out, now 60 gallons per minute, and effectively throwing our water about 20 to 25 meters. So just to recap, for normal gas cooling, we can look at 30 gallons per minute, we can cover the area around us, we can even put a pulse above our heads and see what droplets come down, what hasn't vaporized, is it safe to move forward. By narrowing our fog cone just a little bit, we can throw those droplets further. Open plan, long hallway. Larger commercial building, let's increase the flow rate. And we can put up an enormous amount of cooling when we need to cool those gases. If the structure gets much bigger than that, we have another option. By going to jet, we can extend our reach, break the jet up, the straight stream, against the ceiling, create droplets, create cooling. And for our direct attack, we can also use the same technique for surface cooling. When we're looking at gas cooling, we're looking at a couple of things. Firstly, how we set our nozzle up. For this particular nozzle, we're set on 30 gallons per minute and 100 psi. What we're looking at is getting our perfect droplet size. If our droplet's too small, it won't travel far enough through the smoke before it vaporizes and we won't get penetration. If our droplet's too big, it'll travel through the smoke without vaporizing. Now, our perfect droplet in this case will probably hang in this still air about 3 to 4 seconds. Also, when we're looking at our gas cooling, we're looking at maximum efficiency. Is every one of our droplets going into the hot smoke? If we imagine a neutral plane just at helmet height, that's a good starting point to practice your gas cooling. In this case, by raising the nozzle up, on and off as quickly as possible, I'm throwing about 2 cups of water up into the hot gases. The surface area of the droplets means instant vaporization and instant cooling. If I start to drop down lower though, and I start to gas cool, you can see that if I had a neutral plane above my helmet level, a lot of that water ends up on the floor and would be ineffective. In that case, we would extend our arm up, get the bail about eye level, and ensure that 100% of our water goes up into the hot smoke. The next technique is the long pulse. This time, a good working fire, we have lots of hot gases. We want to extend the reach of our droplets, maybe down a hallway in a residential, maybe in a larger plant area. This way, by lowering my nozzle, I'm directing my stream where the wall meets the ceiling, so I'm getting maximum cooling. Using this technique, I can throw my water 15 to 20 meters. To throw that water longer, to get those droplets into more smoke, I can increase my flow rate. By increasing my flow rate, I increase the size of my droplet. This gives me extra distance, as the droplet has more distance in which to vaporize. Very powerful technique. Smaller commercial buildings perhaps, large open plan houses, when I really want to throw my water as far as possible. The other option I have, once my droplets can't get far enough, is to turn to a straight stream and play that against the ceiling, break it up into droplets. Perhaps not as effective, not the same surface area, but I get the reach and I start to cool. This technique I'd use if I don't think my droplets are going further enough. This is the technique I'd use if I don't think my droplets are going far enough. Sorry? Well, that's what I do, yeah. Okay. So even if you don't have a fog nozzle, by putting it onto a straight stream, we can still cool some of those gases. Perhaps not as effectively, but we're still taking energy out of that smoke by playing the straight stream up against the ceiling, break it into droplets. And this way we can create a sprinkler-like effect. Yeah.
Do this straight. Another straight stream. One more straight stream.
Okay, normally speaking, we don't care how a firefighter holds the nozzle, whether you want to hold the pistol grip, whether you want to hold the hose itself, or whether you even want to hold the bumper to have that fine control. It's important that a student just puts their droplet in the right place, and the way they move and the way they stay low suits their body type. So it's about objectives, it's about achieving those objectives. In this case here, Etienne is holding the pistol grip, holding the pistol grip, can hold the hose, or can hold the bumper. Okay, so hold it in the position you'd like to hold it in. Okay, so Etienne would like to hold it in this position with his hand on the bumper. Once again, as long as he achieves the objectives, the water goes in the smoke, and we want all of the water to go in the smoke, and that he's comfortable. One thing we do ask though, you can see here that the hand that is holding the nozzle, that's also the side that the hose is on. He keeps it in a straight line. Etienne can lock it in with his body, and then actually use his body to move around instead of just his arms. If Etienne was to put that on hold it with the other hand, so swap around, you can see now that a lot of tension is here. Biomechanically, it's not very efficient, and he will tire soon and not have the same control over that nozzle. So once again, it's not about how you hold it, but certainly having the hose on the side that is holding the nozzle is much more beneficial, okay? So from this point here, once again, we're going to imagine we've got a neutral plane. Straight away you saw Etienne pick the nozzle up to make sure that all of the droplets go into the smoke. So if we did a short pulse, and once again, if we just imagine that this is a neutral plane, we can see that 100% of that water is going up into the smoke. If he was to drop it a bit lower and gas cool, and the neutral plane was here, probably only 50% of our water is reaching into the smoke. Plus, we're not getting high enough where most of the hot smoke's going to be. So perfect technique would be to raise it up, and you can see once again, the bail's about in level with the eyes. So when that pulse goes up, we're putting 100% into the water. Now, if we imagine he wants to drive a long pulse down the hallway, lowers the angle of the nozzle, what he's thinking is, if this is the hallway, I'm sending my droplets up to where the back wall meets the ceiling, driving it through as much smoke as possible. And using this technique, even at 30 gallons per minute, we're looking about 15, nearly 20 meters distance down the hallway. Really powerful. Once again, if he lowers down too far, most of that water went on the floor, totally ineffective. Okay? If he wants more reach, we can knock that to 60 gallons per minute. He's effectively doubled his water. And a bigger droplet, increase the flow rate, bigger droplet. We've managed to get our droplets to move further in a larger volume, or maybe more intensity. We have more smoke, we have a bigger fire feeding our smoke. We need to use more water. Now, if the volume suggests that we can't get our droplets to where we wanted to cool the smoke, Etienne can go to a solid stream. And by playing that against the ceiling, breaking it up into droplets, we can get a sprinkler-like effect that will also cool our gases. Perhaps not as effective because our droplets will be varied in size. Some won't have the same surface area. They won't vaporize, they may fall down, but at least we're getting to areas that our droplets mightn't have been able to reach normally.
Do a straight stream again.
Okay, so when we're looking at our short pulse gas cooling, we've got this nozzle set on 30 gallons per minute. We've got 100 psi to the nozzle, and what we're looking at is maximum efficiency. By selecting that pressure and that flow rate, we get a droplet size that will vaporize readily but also penetrate into the hot gases. The other thing we need to take care of is when we're gas cooling is that all of our water actually goes into the smoke. So let's imagine we have a neutral plane at kneeling head height, and if Etienne does a short pulse, let's see where the droplets go. And we can see, if we imagine that neutral plane, that 100% of the droplets went into the smoke, so we're getting maximum efficiency. If anyone was to drop a little bit lower, and we imagine our neutral plane here, and we gas cool, we can see that a percentage, maybe even up to 30, 40, 50% of our droplets dropped on the floor before they could vaporize. So by raising the nozzle up, we're getting this bale at eye height, we're ensuring that all of our droplets go into the hot smoke. So we can go again. If we want to extend that for a long pulse, maybe down a hallway, maybe into a larger volume, we can lower the angle of the nozzle. Our objective is to get maximum droplet height further away, perhaps 15, 20 meters away. Very effective, especially when the convection currents are taking away our short pulse fairly rapidly. By extending our reach, we can cool more gases. In a particularly large commercial building or our fire is particularly intense, we can double our flow rate to 60 gallons per minute. And once again, apply more water and extend the distance of our cooling. In this case, probably up to 25 meters we can extend that water, and maybe with multiple hoses, even in a commercial fire, provide some cooling where we weren't able to provide that before. If our environment is of a volume where our droplets can no longer reach, we can then go to a straight stream, and by playing that against the ceiling, we can break it up and have a sprinkler-like effect. Not as efficient, but it provides cooling once again where our droplets can't reach. Yeah. So if we want to increase the reach of our droplets by increasing our flow rate from 30 gallons a minute to 60 gallons a minute, we'll make our droplet bigger, we can send it further, give it more time to vaporize and increase our efficiency. So if we imagine a large commercial area, we can probably extend our droplets to 25 meters and provide much more cooling than we could if we were just short pulsing, and much more cooling than if we had it on 30 gallons per minute. If our areas start to exceed that, we can go to a straight stream, and by playing that against the ceiling, we can break it up into droplets. Maybe not the same surface area as our fog, but certainly we can get some gas cooling occurring where our droplets couldn't reach before.